All right, everyone, this is Act Two, Take Two. The first time we had some audio difficulties. Usually, when you're dealing with Cash, sometimes there's technical difficulties, audio and video. Actually, that one was on my end. Sometimes when I do work calls, I get informed that my microphone, the audio goes out. So I hope that the audio is working this time. For people that tuned out, I don't blame you. But we're going to start again. I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Ted Bush. I'm Cash Jackson's attorney. I volunteered to do that, and I'll tell you why. And people must think, just to start off, they must think, well, Cash must be a difficult client. And to be honest with you, no, he's not a difficult client because for a very simple reason. And most attorneys, I would think Cash is a good client because Cash likes justice. Attorneys are attorneys are supposed to like justice. So we're sort of in it for the same thing. And particularly if you like public policy like I do and you like bigger issues, you like to see someone willing to take on bigger problems because we have lots of big problems. And Cash, throughout his life, he's seen an injustice, he fights for it. That's what we're supposed to do. That's what we're all taught to do. And unfortunately, in his circumstance, he had to live it in order to understand what was going on, master it, and then advocate for it. And so, I'll go into this later. The reason why I'm doing this call today is that I had a discussion. I have my own case. Oh, cool. You can hear me. So I have my own case, and the opposing counsel in my own case, his name is Evan Mamas, okay, of Mamas Goldberg. And Evan Mamas and I were having a not so pleasant discussion because I don't think very highly of him. But he made a comment at the end. He said, only bad publicity is no publicity at all. That's what domestic relations attorneys think. So and would that surprise anybody that a domestic relations attorney would think that bad people saying bad things about you would be good for you? But apparently they do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say a lot of bad things about Evan Mamas a little bit later. First, I want to say some good things about Cash. And we're going to find out whether, in fact, no publicity is, or bad publicity, the only bad publicity is no publicity at all. That's what he thinks. And from their point of view, they're probably right. I mean, because if I'm going to say that these are perjuring, profiteering, disgusting, immoral persons, there are people out there that will say, oh, that's perfect. I'm an alienating, gatekeeping mother, and I want to deprive someone else of their lawful rights. I want to abuse my children. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to find the biggest scumbag in the entire world. I'll go find Raymond Bolt up in Lake County, or I'll go to Evan Mamas of Mamas Goldberg. And so, maybe Evan, God bless you, I'm going to do you a favor, but we'll find out. I'm not going to say very nice things about you. But before I do that, again, I'm going to talk a little bit about Cash because I'm a guest on Cash's feed. And this is the house that Cash built. He put in a lot of work and a lot of effort. And I only came into this in 2018. And the way it happened is I was sitting on the couch at my girlfriend's house watching the NBC4 live TV debate. And I saw two billionaires and I saw someone named Cash Jackson. And the first question they got was about his child support. And I said, wow, this guy's got some guts. And I could tell right away, where he was coming from. I'd already heard, a little bit about the campaign that he was running, but I knew that this guy has guts and he's one of us. I said, and I watched him, how he presented himself. He did fantastic. And I made a comment to my girlfriend at the time. And so I followed him a little bit more, followed his Facebook page. As I have my own problems going on in my case. And I called him up one time in August and I said, hey, I'd like to help you. You seem like one hell of an advocate. Okay, just a little bit about myself. I spent 10 years in Washington. I worked for a United States congressman from the southwest side of Chicago. His name is Bill Lipinski. He retired in 2004. So I got to know how the Chicago machine works, and it's sort of funny, all these domestic relations lawyers, they think Mike Madigan and Ed Burke and Daley and all these guys, Zaleski, Alderman Mell, all these people that that run this city. I used to talk to them every day. I used to do events with Shirley Madigan. I used to do, I know these people. I know Lisa. I went to the 2000 Democratic Convention. I was a seated delegate, and didn't let me vote, but I was there, and so I've been there. I've seen how this system works. I know these people. Some of them are decent. Some of them, I really believe that if a lot of the people like Madigan and Burke and others, if they really knew what was going on and the people that they appoint, what was actually happening in Cook County and other places in Illinois, I think they would be appalled, to be honest. But I could be wrong. Is there any oversight of what's going on? Who knows? But anyway, back to that. So I worked in Washington for 10 years. I used to lobby Congress. I met with it back in 15 years ago, almost every single member of the House, met with U.S. senators, people that you well know. And I worked on China issues. I represented small, medium-sized domestic manufacturers that were getting run over by China. Big guys getting destroyed by the little guys. And so I lobbied and tried to get legislation passed and bring forward some of the problems that are happening to manufacturers. And then I went to law school. I did take family law in law school. I learned everything. It's not too hard. It's a textbook about this big. Learned about family law. And then later I would learn how family law is broken, which is actually going into a courtroom. Textbooks are great. Okay. They don't teach you anything in law school. Anyone that says, "Oh, I took a family law course in law school," you actually learn how it should be, and then you go into court and you realize that everyone just throws it out and pretends like it never even happened. So I go to law school, and then I come back to Chicago. So I moved from D.C. back to Chicago back in 2015. And I do some domestic civil litigation issues, and I still have contact with my contacts in Washington D.C. And Trump starts running, and all of a sudden one thing leads to another. Trump gets elected. I worked on the transition team for Trump as a volunteer, some policy things, and then as things moved on, I ended up working. As I currently do now, as the field director of a trade association of small, medium-sized domestic manufacturers. We're trying to keep the country from getting run over, from globalization and unfettered free trade and basically poor industrial policy. And, luckily, the last year and a half or so, I've been working with the White House on a very regular basis. I've been to the White House a couple times. I've met with the Secretary of Commerce, the U.S. Trade Representative, a couple U.S. senators, about maybe a dozen members of the House, the Assistant to the President for Manufacturing and Industrial Policy, all kinds of CEOs working to fix our industrial problems. So I came from the swamp. I spent 10 years in the swamp. The smartest people that lived in Washington were cynical. They knew how corrupt it is. Every single thing had to do with money. That's what happens when you get a bunch of lawyers, you put them in one place, and it all becomes basically a game of money. So in 2016, or was 2017, my case starts, and I walk in, and I'll get back to this later. I'm going to skip over this, and I'm just telling you how I got informed of Kash and got involved with Kash. So then we get back into 2017, and my case starts. And then I find out what the swamp really looks like. That here I am as an attorney, and I'm watching probably the worst group of people ever assembled. No, it's not Congress. Those people are okay. Some of them, but unbalanced. These people are really, really, really bad. That these people aren't performing any services whatsoever. When I was working for the Chicago machine, services matter. You get the trees cut down. You get the garbage cleaned up. You do all these things. You go into family court, and they're just sitting around and they're stealing, straight up stealing, doing nothing, causing damage, in the most cynical way whatsoever and taking advantage of very scared, innocent people. So anyway, so I see Kash, a year later or so on the debates, and I called him up, and I'd been watching some of his live feeds, and I said, I'd like to help you. I'll do it pro bono. I'm not promising anything, but at least we can do is get this thing moving again. Now, what I've learned, and people who follow Kash's case, everyone, I guarantee you, even the supporters are saying, oh, there must be something he's hiding. There has to be some sort of explanation for what happened. No, he's telling the absolute God honest truth. That's what happened. And I can explain. I've talked to the people involved. I've talked to the former guardian ad litem. I've talked to the former attorneys. I've seen all the records. I've seen all the evidence. I was in this case. I got an email from the guardian ad litem in this case yesterday, directly stating, again, which we already know, is that he was never found to be an endangerment of the children, ever. And everyone knows that, okay? Then why isn't Kash spending time with his children? And, I'm going to spend probably 10, 15 minutes maybe telling you why, because I know. I've been there. And it's very simple. Is it Kash around 2016 or so realized that this system is broke and he's never going to win under any circumstance. Because what happens, and what happened in his case, is that here we have a 20-year Navy veteran, drill instructor at a naval academy, great father to his kids, loves his kids, had all kinds of responsibilities, got sent out to Washington State. He used to spend months on a sub, but volunteering in the community, doing everything that he should. And then he shows up, and then here come all the nonsense. His case started in 2014, and it continues and continues. It continues. All this little petty stuff. I mean, usually handwritten complaints by the pro se party of allegations that wouldn't meet any standard, and then they all got thrown out. It was finally the third time in 2016, I believe it was 2016. Another order of protection, emergency granted, his life disrupted, can't see his kid for a little bit, ridiculous allegations, all thrown out. But this time, they go back, they have a plenary. A plenary order of protection is when you have a 2-year possible extension of, whatever, protective order. I won't go into it how badly these are abused, but this is a disgrace. And there should be attorneys disbarred by the hundreds for how bad that they abuse this. Everyone knows that they do. The law is clear. You're not even supposed to be filing these. The Marriage and Dissolution of Marriage Act has all the remedies of what an order of protection gives, but they just love the stigma because it creates so much conflict. So anyway, they bring in a third order protection, go in for a plenary. So he can't see his kids again. Whenever things are going well, you just have to throw it out and cause all kinds of problems. And he goes in, and the opposing counsel, his name is Raymond Bolt, shows Judge Salvi a photograph of Kash riding on his truck, protest. I'm not I'm dead broke. I'm not a deadbeat. Other sort of First Amendment, clearly protected protests of what's happening to him at the courthouse. Now, he's expressing his First Amendment rights, his right to speech. God forbid, because he's affecting the jury pool. What jury pool? Not the one in his case, because there's no jury pool. He's trying to influence the electorate that elects these judges. Judge Salvi was running for circuit court judge in 2018. And, if most people running for office don't like people driving around their community with signs saying, I'm getting screwed by this courthouse, the justice system is corrupt. So what does he do? He enters a plenary order of protection alleging harassment for writing basically chalk signs on his car. So he's starting already by this time to realize how fed up it is, and that the only way that anything's ever going to change is if people really start getting activated and getting motivated and speaking up and changing the system. So that was the last straw. So Kash starts to run for governor back in, maybe 2017, late 2017. He gets the Libertarian nomination, late 2017 or so. And he knows that when he runs for governor, he's going to be going up against a system that's known to retaliate against you. I've had countless attorneys come to me and tell me that if you file an SOJ against a judge, a substitution of judge, or you call a judge out for doing something wrong, they will retaliate against you for calling them out. Now, that sounds like the mafia. That doesn't sound like very good people. That doesn't sound like people that are using their authority. But that's what they do, and I promise you that's what they do. And a judge can find any way, million of ways to shield his bias against you. Any excuse that they can make. It's so hard to call. It has to be a clear error of law. So they'll retaliate against you in their rulings, how they treat you, whether they'll even let you speak. And in Kash's case, Kash already had his veterans disability payments illegally taken from him, and so he was paying 10 times as much child support as he should have. The federal law caps it. It has certain levels that they can take from you, and the circuit court was taking well over that. He was paying 10 as a matter of law, because federal law controls in this. He was paying 10 times as much in child support as he was legally obligated to. It was federal law. So Judge Salvi's breaking federal law. Judge Salvi's repeatedly violating Kash's due process rights, all constantly putting in these restrictions, like you can, when you have the time with your kid, you have to take your kid to Taekwondo. Well, one day there's an ice storm. He doesn't take his son to Taekwondo because he fears for his safety. And guess what? He's in court on contempt motions. And usually, even if the allegation is false and ridiculous, they'll still find a way to, punish you and ding you just, because they feel like it. Not, God forbid, okay? Because when these things get started, you think, we got two people, they're both fit, split it up, divide the marital property, move them on. But not in Illinois, not in most of the areas of the country. What will happen is that someone will get the impression that they are owed more than what they are entitled to. That, as long as two people are fit parents, they both have constitutional rights, they're both going to have equal access. Most people don't get that talk. And Kash's ex certainly didn't get it. And, if she did, she certainly didn't understand it. And what these attorneys do is that they egg these people on and they make these people think that they're entitled to rights that they're not entitled to. Moreover, they're a role model for these people because these attorneys go into court and lie and steal. And here you have the client saying, well, look, my attorney's lying and stealing. Why can't I? So actually, these people really fit in well together. And once the ball gets rolling, and they drive up the conflict and they drive up the animosity and they motion after motion after motion after motion, then what happens is they get leverage, they get control, and they'll never give it up. And so the person who's just wants to have 50-50 or equal time with her kid and walk away, they're fighting and clawing for anything, trying to get back to some sort of level of parity. There's no judge that will call this out. They all look the other way because they're all making so much money off this person. There's never been a time that I've seen where you have the person who's playing games and making continual false allegations finally getting whacked. So anyway, this has been going on for a while, and Kash knows that he's going to get retaliated against. He moves his case into federal court in March of 2018. Not necessarily a legal remedy that most people have, but in his circumstance, I don't blame him. He had already been thrown in jail illegally, repeatedly, harassed, bankrupted. The court's not following federal law on multiple angles, constitutional due process rights, other things. So he files a federal removal. And I can tell you as a lawyer, because I've researched this, his case was removed from March 8th of 2018 until April 2nd, 2018. His case was legally no longer in Lake County Circuit Court. It was in federal court. Okay. He did it all by himself. I could have helped him a lot on it. I probably still would have gotten sanctioned if I got in and tried to find some sort of legal reason. But from a moral and practical purpose, I don't blame him. He did not want the Lake County Circuit Court to have jurisdiction over him because he's going to be retaliated because he's going on national debates or statewide televised debates. He's going on local television stations, local radio stations, talking about what's wrong with family courts. He's also doing a great job talking about all the issues in public policy and very, very, very well articulated and informed on all kinds of issues, budget issues, and you name it. But what really separated him, at least from my perspective, was his willingness to bring this element of the justice system into focus. And he knew that he was going to get punished for that. So that's the first thing that he does, is he removes this case to federal court for about a month. Well, what happens? On March 13th, Judge Salvi reopens his case and calls everyone back into court for a hearing that had been canceled by the clerk's office, by the fact that this case moving from circuit court to federal court. The court has no jurisdiction at all. And what do? Kash isn't there. Kash isn't notified of any hearing. Not there at all. They go in, they hold some sort of hearing on God knows what, because there was no motion or pleading. There was no relief for any sort of thing. What do? While he's not there, they put in an order that the parenting time with his daughter will be decided by agreement, meaning Kash is never going to see his daughter because his ex is trying to erase him. So there you go. Somewhat clever of Judge Salvi, but extremely illegal. In my view, it would make him personally liable for a lawsuit. I think when you lack total absence of jurisdiction and you violate someone's civil rights, I think you can get sued under 42 U.S.C. 1983. It's my opinion. So, boom, that's not very good. Then on April 30th, 2018, he gets a call from a media person who says that Al Salvi, Judge Salvi's brother, just posted on Facebook that he wants his spot on the Libertarian ballot. Kash is the Libertarian nominee for governor. Al Salvi ran against Dick Durbin in 1996 for Senate. He was a Republican nominee for Senate. He was a politician who decided to be a personal injury lawyer for 25 years since he ran for office. And he decides that one day, I want Kash's spot on the ballot. He writes on Facebook, Kash, I want your spot on the ballot. Give it to me. And in another Facebook post, he notes that his brother is a judge in this case. Well, does Judge Salvi, the media calls Kash. The media knows about this. I know the media called the courthouse asking for comment. Hey, do you have a comment on this? Does Judge Salvi recuse himself immediately and say, oh my gosh, my brother has a personal interest in this case. I can't be involved in this anymore. This is totally inappropriate. It will stain the image of justice. I must recuse myself. No, he doesn't. He stays in the case and continues to violate Kash's civil rights. No finding of endangerment, no accusation of wrongdoing. What we have going on finally is that his daughter is starting to get older and becomes more susceptible. They're passing off changing from psychologists. When a psychologist agrees with Kash, then they change and they go to a different psychologist, doing everything to frustrate this. And then finally, so Kash files a recusal motion in August of 2018. It gets covered. It gets denied horribly. 3 months later, on November 14th, 2018, Kash stops going to status calls, okay, because he's running for governor. He's publicly running for governor. He has a right to run for governor. I talked to his former guardian ad litem. I think he missed one visit with his daughter. I think there was going to be a skating sort of outing. And that was it. And there was, of course, all kinds of frustrations where the mom wouldn't schedule and was making it all kinds of hard. And he went downstate and he did a media interview. He missed one visit with his kids. One. And what do? A week after the election is they suspend his parenting time on a status call. a status call, where there's nothing up for consideration, no motions, no hearing, no notice of anything, and certainly no finding of endangerment. There's no finding of endangerment on this order. So a week after the election, they go into court with him not there. They didn't call him, hey, what's going on? What are you doing? Nothing like that. Kash, he's had it. And so on November 14th, 2018, they suspend his parenting time with both children until he comes back to court, knowing that if he goes back to court, he's probably going to spend the next 6 months in jail on bogus contempt charges for child support that he doesn't know. Okay, they're basically trying to entrap him back. And he ran for governor. He knew what was basically going to happen, and he bailed. And I can't take this anymore. And so what they did to him, and then of course after that, he called his kids constantly, texting, and I've seen these texts, I've seen the records. He's always trying to reach out to his children, and he's being denied that. And and the mother is hiding behind this illegal order. She had no business ever being entered. It's illegal. Everyone involved in that order should be reported to the bar, and the judge should be reported to the Judicial Inquiry Board for entering that order. It is facially void. Okay, so fast forward to when I come into this case. This is what I have. Okay, I have my client's parenting time illegally violated. As a matter of law, this is the most clearly void order that you have ever seen. It says this person's fundamental rights are being denied because he didn't attend court. He didn't do anything to his children. He didn't attend court on a status call with nothing up for consideration. And you can only lose access to your children and have your parenting time restricted if you are an endangerment. There's no finding of endangerment. There's no serious impairment to mental health. There's no allegations of any wrongdoing at all. Okay? Most lawyers and most judges, if they saw this order, they would be appalled. Most people that never got involved in family law, if they saw that something like this could happen, they would think that this would be on the front page of the news. So like, no, we don't do this to each other. So I come into this case, and the first thing that I do in August of 2019 is I file a motion to vacate all this stuff. You think, oh, it must be so easy to get this vacated. Not a problem. We find out that there's a new judge in this case. Her name's Janelle Christensen, and we'll walk in. We'll get this thing vacated, no problem. And no, she didn't want to do anything until she got a new guardian ad litem. We spend another few months. We get a guardian ad litem appointed. Her name is Sally Lichter. And to make, I can go into detail, but to make a long story short, what has happened here is that this has been drawn out. Okay, the child said in a February call that he desperately wants to see his dad. He wants to go down to Arkansas and spend a week, a spring break with him, spend lots of time with him. The guardian ad litem says repeatedly that Kash is not an endangerment, but somehow it's not happening. And the reason why it's not happening is that the mother is constantly getting away with violating these orders and coaching the child and preventing the children from talking to him. And so we went into court. We actually got a modest victory in March where Kash is going to get spring break parenting time, where, he spends time with his son, 3 days. Great. Well, the COVID stuff comes. The mother says she's not going to provide the children under any circumstances, and it goes away. Then we go back 3 weeks later, and then it turns into supervised weekly phone calls with no finding of endangerment. And what these people are doing is looking for a reason to deny Kash, to leave him alone. And what is going on right now, and I know this, I'll say this publicly, is straight up profiteering. Everyone knows that he's not an endangerment. Everyone knows that the court screwed this up. All of the objectives of the Illinois Marriage and Dissolution of Marriage Act, which is to foster maximum involvement with both children, totally failed. Okay? So instead of saying, all right, you know what? Kash is in Arkansas. We're going to we're gonna, the boy wants to see his father. He wants to go fishing with him, wants to go hunting with him. We have a pandemic coming on. Let's get this kid out of here. Let's let them, reconnect. No, no, they don't do that. No, we don't want the child to leave the state. That's what the judge said. We don't want the child to leave the state. So we're going to leave the child in the middle of a pandemic in Illinois. And so that never happens. He never gets his parenting time. Well, let's just make sure. Look, the entire country shut down. Arkansas doesn't have a stay-at-home order. Well, let's just get the child down to Arkansas at any time. Let's let them rebond. No, they don't do that. 1 hour a week of supervised phone calls where the guardian ad litem, who's billing $350 an hour to listen in onto these calls, eavesdrop on him for one purpose, and that is to find evidence against him, anything that they can use to find any kind of excuse to prolong this and prolong this and prolong this. Kash is right. In that video that got 275,000 views, straight up correct on this, is that the guardian ad litem was appointed in December. It's been 6 months now, and she has racked up $10,000 in fees for doing almost nothing. We were begging her, hey, Sally, can you contact Kash's fiance, girlfriend of 6 years, military policewoman, police officer, someone who might know what was going on all this time, all the abuse, harassment, bankruptcy, all the absolute just awful things that happened while Judge Salvi was judging this case. We've asked her, begged her. She has not called his fiance, but she called his first wife. So this is what's going on here, is that these people game this out and profiteer these things, where they sort of give you a little hope in the beginning, and then we pull back the football like Lucy. And so where we have a situation where no one is able to actually observe Kash and his son together. That's usually the requirement for any time that you deal with any sort of evaluation, professional evaluation, any kind of evaluation. To control for one important thing, which is the interference, the coaching of the mother. Now we know in this case that Kash's son has told the guardian ad litem that his mother does not want him to have a relationship with Kash. End of story. That should be over. That should be all the evidence. You normally don't get evidence that strong, but that is it. All right. The child is saying openly that the mother does not want to co-parent with the father. Well, we have a problem there, don't we? We're going to come in and we're going to do something. We're going to get a mental evaluation. We're going to assess whether she has some sort of fundamental mental defect that is, whether it's borderline personality, narcissistic personality, something to determine, get her some help, for the betterment of her and her children. And the purpose of the Illinois Marriage and Dissolution of Marriage Act is for the children to have the maximum involvement with both children as possible. If one person is clearly not doing that, you need to take action. And they have not taken any action whatsoever. Nothing. And we have tried. So, we're at a point here where, as of this given moment, where I'm not sure where this is going, but I can tell you for sure is that Kash did everything right. Everything that they wanted him to. I mean, we wanted them to vacate this out, establish a new parenting schedule, and move on. And they found every reason just to drag this out and to drag this out and drag this out. And so that's what we're doing, is that we're looking for a reason to keep screwing Kash. That's basically where we are in this case. So Kash is becoming more public. Very good. He's getting fed up. He doesn't have confidence with the court system. Well, either do I. Either does most of everyone, including the people that practice. Okay? When you have people, this is the situation in Illinois, where 2/3 of the population are pro se, meaning they represent themselves. You have a dwindling market, and you have all these attorneys who have decided that they're worth $350 an hour, or $400, or $500, or $600. And so you have all these people whose incomes are already slowing in the last 20 years. Now they're crashing with the coronavirus epidemic, and these attorneys still want to charge people an extreme amount of money that they can't afford. So what's fundamentally going on here is that these attorneys, Raymond Bolt, terrible human being, Sally Lichter, at least honest, but still profiteering, and the judge, who God knows what she's doing. The three of them together have a case where there is some income. There's pension income, there's retirement, there's disability. The mother has income. They're all holding on, and they're trying to take as much as they possibly can, because as the case with most domestic relations attorneys around this country, they're losing customers. Their customers can't afford them. These people are terrible, terrible businessmen and businesswomen. Okay? If you have a market, you try to serve the market. But what these people have done is basically ignored most of the market and try to hang on with their fingernails like vampire squids and suck the money out of every single freaking case that they can get their hands on. Otherwise, their kids are, they're going to have to sell their Mercedes Benz, and they're going to have to move out of the suburbs, and they're going to have to downsize, and their kids are not going to be able to go to the nicest schools in the in the country. So, that's what the state of this case looks like, what the domestic relations courts look like in Illinois, and it's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. Now we have these Zoom hearings where the courts are broadcasting these proceedings, and Cash's civil rights are being violated without question. Procedural, substantive, without question. And he's talking about it, which makes him a hero. So he's talking about this, and of course they don't want him to talk about it. They don't realize how many thousands and thousands of views that he's gotten. That we have a court of public opinion right here, and on social media, and they don't like it, and they certainly don't like their proceedings being broadcast on Facebook. Public business being done in public. They don't want this being distributed. So what do? On June 1st in Lake County, they start having Zoom calls on every single proceeding. So every single court proceeding in most of Illinois is being done remotely right now. Well, they find out that someone recorded a proceeding in Cash's case on March 12th, 2020, and she turns around and she issues an order by herself, this judge, on May 28th, 2020, saying, Cash, you're not going to have a Zoom hearing. You're going to have to come in to court. And knowing that he lives in Arkansas. Why? Because there's a fear that she thinks that Cash is going to record the proceeding and broadcast it on Facebook. Well, guess what? That's his right. And it's everyone's right. It's my right to do that, because you're going into public place with public officials speaking in audible range to multiple people. These are public court proceedings. We filed a petition. We lined up all the law of what the law is and what the rights are. But everyone has the right to do this. And what's happened over a long period of time is that these courts have chilled speech. It's a form of First Amendment violation. Okay, it's one thing to prevent entire categories of speech, discriminate on content. But sometimes what the courts have done, and they've done in this case, by threatening people with contempt for recording and distributing the court's own broadcasts, threatening people with contempt, what they're doing is they're chilling speech. Speech includes the right to make a recording. There was a Seventh Circuit case in that in 2012 called ACLU versus Alvarez. Speech also includes the right to disseminate that information, to give it to your friends, your family, the public community. It is a free speech right. In Illinois, there were two cases where a contempt motion and a criminal indictment were thrown out when someone recorded his proceeding and advocated for people recording and proceeding. The law is clear. But these people are pretending that it isn't. And so what their view is that, one, we don't want, fundamentally what's going on is that we don't want people to know what's really going on here. I don't want to, all of a sudden, be exposed in the media or in a Facebook post of violating someone's due process rights flagrantly in my courtroom, which is what I do. I don't want the voters to know about that. I don't want the other circuit judges who appoint the associate judges to know about that. Furthermore, they don't want these people to have a record that you can appeal on. So let's say your rights get violated, you need to go up to the appellate court. And in order to do that, you have to tell the appellate court what happened in the circuit court. And what's happening is that like 65% of the people that can't afford attorneys, they can't afford court reporters either. So what's happening is that they are being absolutely silenced. They're being shut out of the justice system for the crime of being poor. So what's happening in Illinois and a lot of places is just flagrantly illegal. The states that have a right to appeal cannot discriminate against poor people, and that's what's happening. And it's being done by judges and attorneys. Okay, you think that this system's broken. You think that they're really out for justice. You would think that the justice system working was something that people would want to see, but they don't. I've been threatened. I've gone into court, had my phone taken away from me. All these things that, don't bring that out. I did. I submitted a few transcripts of my own to the appellate court to finish out a record that otherwise I wouldn't have, because when I go into my judge's courtroom, his name is John Carr. He's an absolute disgraceful human being in Cook County Domestic Relations Court downtown. I don't know what he's going to do. So I can't pay $250 for a court reporter every time I go into his courtroom. Are you kidding me? I mean, and I'm an attorney. How many times do you go into court? So, I'm going to protect my rights because I don't know what the heck he's going to do, including making substantive rulings when there's nothing up for consideration. So that's the environment that we're in. So Kash is in the position where he's getting absolutely spun around, and it's terrible. It's terrible. It is. It makes me very, very, very angry, and it should make a lot of people angry. And so what we're doing is we're challenging that. We're finally standing up to these people. And these people are saying, well, you should have just appealed that order from November, Kash. You should have appealed that within 30 days. They love that. Oh, you should have filed a timely appeal. Sorry, folks. When you do it, when you make a procedural error and a substantive error that bad, you can appeal that at any time. And we are going to appeal that. But when we appeal that, we're going to bring in to the appellate court as soon as next week, extremely fast, the right to record and disseminate recordings, period. A public court proceeding, especially a Zoomcast, you have a right to record and disseminate that. Number one. And then number two, you have to either provide a recording system yourself, make it available, or you need to stop violating thousands and thousands and thousands of people's fundamental rights by making substantive rulings on times that are not even up for consideration, and basically creating one system of justice for one people, the wealthy people in the suburbs who could afford appellate attorneys and can hire court reporters to come in every single freaking time you're in court, and everybody else who just gets run over and screwed. So we're fighting back in this case, and I think people are paying attention, and they deserve it. They all deserve it. So, we'll see what happens in this case. I continue to remain optimistic, but what we're basically doing right now is calling these people out, and they deserve to be called out. And frankly, they deserve to be referred to various disciplinary authorities for violating their oath to uphold the Constitution. The guardian ad litem in this case said it's not her responsibility to uphold her client's due process, fundamental due process rights, civil rights. Okay, then why are you an attorney? Why do we have guardian ad litems being attorneys if they think that it's not their role to defend their client's civil rights. When everyone goes into to swear to take an oath to the bar, I took my oath before Judge Ann Burke, who's the Chief Justice of the Illinois Supreme Court. And one of those, when you take the oath, you swear that you're going to uphold the Constitution. The Constitution includes the Due Process Clause. The Constitution includes the First Amendment. The Due Process Clause is wide-ranging. It includes the substantive due process right for the care, custody, control of your children, and procedural rights like basic things like being noticed, have a right to a hearing, have a right to be a finding, to be known what the hell the judge thinks you did, so you can possibly have that reviewed. We don't get any of that here, and I mean this most sincerely. I'm going to see Vice President Pence on Thursday. I saw Vice President Pence in October. I saw President Trump in Michigan in February. I know a lot of White House staff. I've talked to the White House staff before. I know people that are close to this, and I do a lot of things to try to help to get the message out, to connect them with people that the business people that make things and want to keep making things. But there are a lot of people working this angle, and I am too. If I get the opportunity, and I believe I will get the Civil Rights Division of the Justice Department involved in this. I don't think we're that far away, but I think we should. The media isn't covering this stuff. We've tried. We've spoken to them. Some people are interested, but my hope is that when we see enough examples of what's going on in these courtrooms, I have a Zoom hearing of another person whose due process rights are being violated right now, and it's on video. Okay, there is a recording. I have the recording. No one seems to give a shit. I have a couple reporters that have indicated some sort of interest, a little here, a little there. But when is someone out there going to finally realize, we're on to something, that the story checks out, that everything that he's saying is true, that he's a rational person, that he's completely mentally fit, that he has saved countless veterans from committing suicide, that his children love him. There's tons of videographic evidence for that. And Kash committed the crime of realizing that the game was rigged, that no matter what you do, you're going to lose. You do everything that they tell you to do, they're going to string you out, take all your money, make it as slow as possible, find any kind of excuses that they can, and screw you. Okay? The other option that you have is to make it as hard on them as possible, expose them and out them, and hope that, these people will finally realize that it just isn't worth it with this guy. Leave him alone. He can fight back, and he can land a punch on you figuratively, and it's just not worth it. I think Plan B was the better choice in this case, and I stand by it, and I'm going all in on it, and we're about ready to get into a one public scrap with the Illinois courthouses and a number of places, and we're going to hit them where they're most vulnerable, and that is the fact is that they're covering up what they're doing systemically. I'll tell you one quick story. The judge in my case, his name is Judge John Carr. I won't go in now. I'm not going to go into all my my stuff. I could, but this other father, who was also before him, on September 17th, 2019, he shows up to a status call. He has two attorneys, and they show up. The opposing counsel, his name is Alan Pearl. The guardian ad litem, his name is Stuart Gelfman. And they show up, and Alan Pearl complains to Judge Carr. He says, Judge Carr, the father won't give his daughter his backpack back, her backpack. And Judge Carr says, oh, all right, let's suspend his parenting time. Let's prevent him from seeing his daughter. So, and it gets written into the order. And the father, who I know, he has two attorneys. The attorney objects. He writes in there and he says, we want a hearing. So Judge Carr gives him a hearing. It's continued to that Friday, the 21st of September, I believe. And so the father calls me, basically in tears, saying, Judge Carr suspended my parenting time with my daughter over a whole bunch of BS. And so I ended up going into the hearing on the 20th. I had a court that day myself. I wanted to see this for myself. And this is the infamous backpack case that everyone should know about. And I reported this to the ARDC. And they better get their act and do something about this, because this is a disgrace what happened. So it turns out that there's a 4-year-old girl, and the mother kicks the father out of the home back in March of 2019 or so. Kicks the father out of the home. So he has to live with his mother, lives with a friend. While he's trying to get his house back, the mother leases the house out to someone else. And so he puts all his personal belongings in storage, including a pink backpack, which I've held this backpack in my arm, a pink backpack, which is a gift from his mother. So the grandmother gave this 4-year-old daughter this. The father hardly has any access with his child at all after being booted out of the house in an EOP, a garbage EOP. Hardly sees his daughter at all. The mother gets all the leverage. She's abusing it. She's making it as hard as she can, racking up amazing. Stuart Gelfman is billing $500 an hour in this case. He is so conflicted. Okay, are you telling me that someone who makes $500 an hour is not predisposed to drag out a case, which is what he did? And so it turns out that the mother gets an audio recording and records the daughter saying, Daddy says I can have my backpack when he gets his condo back. Which is not what the father said, because his parenting time was supervised. He had a supervisor that witnessed it. But nevertheless, that's the allegation that they bring to the judge on a status call. They didn't file a pleading, because I'm telling you, if anyone filed a pleading in one of my cases where they tried to get someone's parenting time suspended because he didn't return a backpack, I would file sanctions on them. So of course they didn't file a motion. They just go into court and they allege that the father wouldn't give this 4-year-old girl her backpack back. And so the opposing counsel Alan Pearl wants to play this before the judge. The opposing counsel's, the father's counsel objects and says that's hearsay. So guess what? Stuart Gelfman reads in the contents of this recording directly to the judge. So he gets around the hearsay problems. The GAL sides with the mother instead of saying this is ridiculous. He sides in with the mother, reads in the alleged statements of the daughter, recorded by the mother, by herself, okay, alleging that the father wouldn't give this daughter her backpack back. Well, again, guess what we find out? And guess what Judge Carr finds out on September 20th of 2019? We find out that the daughter has 2 backpacks. And in fact, the backpack in question, okay, her backpack had been going back and forth with the daughter every single time. Daughter always has her backpack. What the mother wanted is the mother wanted the second backpack, which was sitting in storage. Why? Because she's in the father's house selling all of his items on Facebook, selling all of his things while he's not there, and it's his apartment. Privately, they had a prenuptial agreement. It was his apartment, his condo, selling all his things, and he doesn't want to give this gift from his grandmother, this backpack, back to the mother because she's going to get rid of it, because she's trying to get rid of all the things that, were gifts from his family and everything, while he's locked out of his house. So not on top of that, he loses parenting time with his daughter, okay? And what the intention of this father was simply to, oh, sure, I'd love to have the backpack when I go into U-Haul storage and get the backpack. So they go back on the 20th. They have a hearing on this with no motion filed, still no allegation, nothing in writing. There will never be any proof of a written allegation filed in Cook County Circuit Court about alleged, endangerment issue of a father not returning a girl her backpack. No written record at all, except for a hearing, and I saw it. And it was the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen in my life. That this attorney, Alan Pearl, was going on for making $400, $500 an hour, and just accusing the father of, if the father was denying that he didn't say what he said, then he must have a problem. And he must not realize that it's a serious problem. And the judge agrees with him and reduces his parenting time with his daughter. So he got his hearing. He never got notice or motion exactly what he was accused of, but he lost access with his daughter with no finding of endangerment, never finding of endangerment, loses parenting time with his daughter because he wouldn't give the gift from his grandmother, a backpack for his 4-year-old daughter, wouldn't give it back to his mother. And that's what family court is. That is a perfect example of a corrupt GAL, a profiteering attorney taking advantage of a very disturbed woman and causing that poor grandmother to cry. I was there. I saw that poor woman cry because she just wanted to give her daughter, her granddaughter, a backpack. And it ended up causing her not able to see her daughter at all. The heartbreak on that poor woman was unbelievable. So, anyway, I'm going to close out. I'm not going to go as long as Kash. I'm getting close to an hour. I'm not going to go into my case, although I have one hell of a story. But I want to tell a little bit about why I decided to come on today. And that was the comment from the opposing counsel in my case. His name is Evan Mamas. Evan Mamas says, only bad publicity is no publicity at all. These domestic relations attorneys must think that if you say bad things about them, good things will happen to them. And you know what? They're probably right. Because they'll probably, when I come out and I say that Evan Mamas and Mamas Goldberg in Chicago, Illinois, is an absolute disgusting, decrepit law firm that suborns perjury, they can't even cite. This guy accused me of violating an ethics rule that was repealed in February of 1990. He admitted in public, and I reported this to the ARDC. This guy is still under investigation. If you want an attorney that's under investigation by the ARDC, go to Evan Mamas, because Evan Mamas has been under investigation by the Disciplinary Commission for going on a year. Okay, it's two people. It's Evan Mamas and Katie Mamas Vanderpoorten, which is his little spoiled daughter. And Katie, they suborned perjury in my case. They knew it. They had written evidence from my ex, knowing that the stuff they were going into court in was totally bull. They strung this out. I have this is a true story. I went to a Christmas party in December, and I met a woman who's babysitting my kids, who's been spending more time with my kids, happens to just live in the same building, in the same room. And she told me very clearly what was happening in this case, that it was Evan Mamas telling my ex not to let me see my kids because if she did, Mamas Goldberg would withdraw, and my ex would never be able to get another attorney. So I'm talking to someone who's in my ex's house having these conversations, and she's telling me that these people are threatening her, that if they don't get all of our retirement funds, they're going to withdraw, and my ex will never have another attorney. Well, it's even better. So this law firm in Chicago is called Mamas Goldberg. All right. The only people left are Evan Mamas and his daughter, Katie Vanderpoorten. And it used to be called Mamas. It's still called Mamas Goldberg, but the guy by the name of Goldberg, he's dead. He died in 2016. So this babysitter, okay, let's call her H, just to simplify this babysitter. I'm not going to reveal her name. this babysitter, her name is H, she was victimized by the very same law firm. The guy's name is Jerry Goldberg. He's dead. Thank God he's dead, because he is a piece of rotting shit. Okay? What Jerry Goldberg did to this babysitter, she went through her own case, is that he billed $600 an hour, okay, for a woman who could barely afford basic living expenses. He comes in, bills $600 an hour, doesn't do shit, rings up $24,000 in GAL fees, and then what does he do? He files contempt motions against her. Who in the world thinks that they could afford someone billing $600 an hour? Well, Jerry Goldberg is, and he's doing it to this poor woman, abusing this poor fit woman. And they go into court, files a contempt motion, suspends her driver's license, and then also suspends her private investigator's license. So this woman's a private investigator, okay? And she, to this day, she hasn't gotten her driver's license back. And she's been absolutely ruined by Mamas Goldberg, by Jerry Goldberg, who raped her and happens to be babysitting my kids by my ex, who is represented by Evan Mamas and Jerry Goldberg. Evan Mamas is breaking federal law right now by trying to steal the retirement savings, claiming that he has some sort of interest in it. He has none. He is not entitled to any of these retirement funds. And he's threatening my ex that he will withdraw if he doesn't get, the approximately $150,000 of it. So he's threatening her. Okay? This is a true story. So I'll tell you why they're under investigation by the ARDC. So they committed, the reason why I reported Evan and his daughter, and then there's Steve Wasco as well. Steve Wasco is the guardian ad litem in this case. The reason why I reported them is that on November 30th, 2018, they wrote an order, okay, where my civil rights were violated in Cook County. It was on the record. And what Judge Carr did is that Judge Carr, my ex, filed a bullshit emergency order of protection. They all knew it was false. All written. All of them went along with it. After it was the EOP was entered, Steve Wasco tells me, you should just apologize. Just apologize to the court, apologize to me. Meaning cover up for my sins. I said, no, I'm not going to do that. So we go in and we have a plenary hearing. The plenary is denied, but Judge Carr makes a finding without a motion up for consideration. So what he does is he says, you know what, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to deny the only matter up for consideration. I said, okay, thank you, Honor. I'll stop presenting evidence. So I stopped presenting evidence. The hearing's over. Oh no. So he denies the plenary order of protection, but then he makes a finding on his own, sua sponte, under 60310, after denying me a full hearing and falsely claiming that there was a motion up for consideration. So these counsel lie on the order. It's provable by the transcript that there was no full hearing, and they had no motion under what's called 60310 in Illinois up for consideration. So they lied. So, and on top of that, during this proceeding, Steve Wasco, who's the GAL, states on the record that the only thing up for consideration is the plenary order of protection. So what do? Instead of saying, oh, no, Judge, we can't do that. That's, we need to have a proper motion. There's case law that says you can't sua sponte do this. This guy's entitled to notice. This guy's entitled to motion. He's entitled to be heard. And so they lie on a November 13th, 2018 order. They lie that there was a full hearing and that there was a matter up for consideration on this motion. So I report them to the ARDC. That's in June of last year. It's now been over a year, and they're still under investigation. But this is even better. So what happens is they have to respond to me. The ARDC opens a complaint process, and these people have to respond to me. Well, what they do is they respond to me. You'll love this. I filed 3 individual complaints against these people, okay? I'll tell you who they are. This is Evan Mamas of Mamas Goldberg. Okay, that's Evan Mamas. He's, all right, there you go. Okay, this is his daughter, Katie Mamas Vanderpoorten. Okay, this is her contact information. Okay, that's who she is. And this is Steve Wasco. Okay, Steve Wasco is the guardian ad litem. Okay, these are the people that did this. These are the people, these are 3 cases of 3 people under investigation by the Attorney Registration and Disciplinary Commission. 3 different cases. Okay, but what do? They reply together as one. Okay, they respond to the ARDC with one single response. And the GAL in my case responds back on opposing counsel's letterhead, on Evan Mamas's letterhead. Okay, Steve Wasco, these 3 people make the same response, coordinated together, write it back to the ARDC. They don't get it to the substance of my complaint until page 4. But what they do is they accuse me of violating some rule for recording my son in a counseling session protecting his and my due process rights. Okay, I'm going into a counseling session, and Steve Wasco isn't reporting anything of what's going on. He's purposely suppressing evidence. He's profiteering. I find out from all kinds of people that's his reputation. It's just profiteering, stringing out cases. His father was a domestic relations attorney. He has no moral fiber character in his body. He looks like Burt Lancaster, but he is evil as sin. He is a piece of human filth. Okay, all of these people are. These people were all entered into the bar in the late 70s. Okay, so they've been screwing people for 40 years. Okay, and they thought, well, let's do it to this guy. No, who cares? So they respond back and they try to file a complaint against me for recording my son in a counseling session where my son actually exposes their client for lying and committing perjury. Okay, gee, I wonder why they don't like that. Because I recorded my son proving that everything that they said was wrong. Okay, and I never had access to him before until I get to this counseling session. This counseling session is supposed to be confidential. So they write back and they accuse me of violating this rule. I think it was 5-102. Okay, oh, Mr. Bush violated 5-102. And I'm like, what the hell rule is that? And I look and I find out that it's the Code of Professional Conduct that was repealed in February 1990. These people responded back to the ARDC and admitted that they had not looked at the ethics rules in Illinois for 30 years. Okay? If I'm a prosecutor and I accuse one of you of murder, I better get the statute right. Okay, if the statute was changed, it certainly looks like I don't know what I'm talking about. But what's so bad about this is that these people admitted, okay, I got 2 attorneys, Steve Wasco and Evan Mamas, both admitted in the late 70s, admitting that they have not read the state's ethics rules in 30 years. Okay, and you think, oh, they might realize they made a big mistake. Well, they really didn't seem to care. Because on August 12th, 2019, I filed my reply in the ARDC, went into court, sat next to Steve Wasco. I said, Steve, in your joint reply with the opposing counsel, clearly taking sides, making accusations against me on their letterhead, I said, Steve, I could have done a better job responding to that letter. You just admitted that you haven't read the ethics rules in Illinois for 30 years. He responds back to me, I haven't read the ethics rules in Illinois in 30 years. He admitted it to me and didn't care. Okay, attorneys are required to take a certain amount of ethics credit every 2 years. I think it's 2 to 4 hours. It's always going up. It's always changing. So what the bar associations are telling attorneys that you have to know what the ethics rules are. They're called the Illinois Rules of Professional Conduct. Okay, when you go and you pass the bar, you have to take something called the MPRE, which is a multi-state professional responsibility exam, where you have to go in and answer very difficult questions about very important ethical issues. And so what I experienced when getting these people out of their environment and filing an ethics complaint against them is that, is what they did, could that get them disbarred? Maybe. It's they certainly weren't telling the truth. But what these people admitted to, which was the worst thing that they did, is that these three attorneys together admitted to not reading the ethics rules for 30 years, meaning that when they tell the state that they're complying with their ethics CLE, their continuing legal education requirements, when they tell the state that they are in compliance, they are lying to them. Okay? So if people out there think that domestic relations lawyers are unethical, they are. They are lying and cheating and stealing every single step of the way. But it's for the people, the old timers, these people that think that they're untouchable. These people have gone 30 years without ever reading the ethics rules of a state. I have them busted. Now, I'm waiting for the ARDC to finally conclude this and make some sort of, determination. They charge people all the time. Maybe they've been shut down. I don't know. But it's been about a year. And I've seen, I know it's still open. Okay, I know for a fact it's still open. I get notified if this thing is closed. What's taking them so long? Okay, to realize that, there's something not right about three attorneys getting three individual complaints, writing back together. That looks like collusion. You know what the old prisoner's dilemma is? When someone's under investigation, okay, there are two prisoners. You put them in separate cells. You ask them separate questions. These people, instead of writing back to them with their own explanation, they wrote back on the exact same letter, knowing that their story was exactly the same. So Steve Wasco didn't have the opportunity to write back and say, you know what? On November 30th, 2018, there was only one matter up for consideration. I stated it on the record, and no, this shouldn't have gone in the record. He didn't do that. He covered for them because that's what these people are, as a protection racket. So, again, Evan Mamas, here's Evan Mamas, okay? Evan Mamas, okay, that's him. All right, you can look him up. mamasgoldberg.com is a website. Evan Mamas, if you look at him, you look like he'd be selling used watches underneath his coat. He's greasy, he's fat, he's a liar, he's grooming his daughter to cause as much abuse and destruction as he has. And Evan Mamas thinks that only bad publicity is no bad publicity at all. Because he's thinking that if I say something really bad about him, then probably there'll be an alienating, gatekeeping woman that will say, you know what, that's really the son of a bitch that I want. So what I'm asking everyone to do is to find out. Let's find out. Evan, is no publicity, is only bad publicity no publicity at all? Okay, here's some publicity, Evan. All right, here's some publicity, Katie. Okay, here you go. Here's some publicity. Let's find out. Let's find out what it's like to be unpopular. Maybe being a total scumbag is a good thing. Maybe that's, maybe that'll get you more business. Maybe people will say, you know what? I lie. I suborn perjury. I try to violate children's civil rights. I try to violate father's civil rights. I want to absolutely cause long-term attachment disorders on my children. Okay? I want to absolutely screw them up. And you know what? The perfect person for me to go to is Evan Mamas. Okay? Evan Mamas. Evan Mamas will take the lowest of the low. Okay? If you're a total scumbag, okay? If you're someone that thinks that you're entitled to something that you're not deserving of, call Evan Mamas. Okay? Evan Mamas wants bad publicity. He thinks this is good publicity right now. Call Evan Mamas. Okay? If you want a guardian ad litem, okay? If you want a guardian ad litem that will openly admit to not reading the ethics rules in 30 years to your face on August 12th, 2019, call Steve Wasco. Okay? Steve Wasco would love to come into your case and do absolutely nothing except prolong the litigation, steal your money, and absolutely create a generation of distraught and unhealthy children. My children have not been represented at all. Okay? This guy, Steve Wasco, wanted me to falsely confess for something I didn't do and cover for him. Okay? But this is the greatest thing. Okay? So he really let this whole thing happen, and he knew exactly what he was doing. Steve Wasco, we had an emergency order of protection hearing on October 10th, 2018. Okay? The father can't see his kid at all for a period of time. And what does Steve Wasco do? Steve Wasco, when does he interview his client? Well, let's find out if the kid's okay. Okay, when does he go visit his client? November 19th, 2018. He waits 40 days. 40 days, okay, for an allegation that started festering in early August. Okay, so all right, the mother's making allegations against the dad again, 5-page screeds of all kinds of stuff. Okay, let's go talk to the son. Let's find out about this. Oh no, oh no, oh no. No, what he did is he let my ex go around him completely, unilaterally select a counselor, lie to the counselor, start a DCFS investigation, go completely around Steve Wasco, and create a total fiasco that he's tried to profiteer of this entire time. So you want to know what? That's what I'm dealing with. That's what these people are dealing with. These people are out of control. And I can only thank God that Kash has spent four years doing what he's doing and building the following and building the interest, building the movement to get this done. Kash is a terrific, terrific client. Kash is someone that is fun to watch. He's totally in control. He is. I mean, his arguments, he makes legal arguments very well. He makes psychological, sociological arguments very well. He is an expert on all this stuff. He could teach people, and no one's listening to him. And no one wants to help him. No one gives a shit. And so what is it going to take? How many people are going to have to go forward and tell their stories, tell some things that they may not be comfortable about, but, talk about our experiences. Don't be shamed by these people. Shame them back, because they are scum. I spent 15 years in Washington. I've seen a lot of dirtbag people, but I've never, ever, ever seen anything like this. I am ashamed to be an attorney. I've wanted to rip up my attorney card more times than you can count in these courtrooms, because they don't listen. They don't care. They are part of the problem. And they like to look and they say, oh, look at these two people fight. Can't you two just get along? Well, excuse me, you empowered someone who is trying to erase the other person out of the father's life completely, and you let it go. They're giving you warnings. They're making pleadings. They're telling you, hey, please come in and help me, and you're not doing anything. You're looking the other way. And we all know why. Because you're all a part of the same crowd. You've known each other for years. You know exactly what's going on. Is that when this guy leaves the courtroom and goes on with his life dead broke, okay, and bitter, you're not going to see that person again. You're going to see the attorney who did it to him. So whose side are you on? It is a profiteering, multi-billion-dollar industry that needs to get absolutely destroyed. And the people that are doing it can't feel comfortable anymore. They need to be public. The things that they do in public, the oaths that they break, the laws that they break, needs to be exposed. And I can see a growing movement in that direction. And, there's no one who's going to be all things to all people. Everyone's going to have a little bit of a bit in this play. But, what we have to do together is fight together and start exposing these due process violations, getting out these Zoom hearings, getting out, so people can see, just like you're watching me right now. Get this stuff out so we can all see. So the people that wouldn't believe it actually believe it. When there were cops killing innocent people, okay, there weren't body cams, there weren't dashboard cams, there weren't cell phones. It took a long ass time to finally figure out that there were innocent people getting killed in our streets for doing absolutely nothing wrong. And we finally saw it many times, but we saw it most clearly in Minneapolis. That recording mattered. Okay. Now we have recordings, including in Cash's own courthouse. On day one of the Zoom hearings, day one, we have a recording of a father getting his due process rights violated on camera. And so what is it going to take? This guy can't see his daughter until he has a hearing. I just happen to know a little thing about this case and know that this guy did absolutely nothing wrong. And these people should feel terrible for what they're doing. And they're doing it openly right now. How many times? How many videos are we going to have to float around the ether and on the web, audio, video, before someone finally sees it and says, ah, that's what they were talking about this entire time. Oh. So anyway, I'm gonna check off. I've gone Cash time. I didn't mean to go this long necessarily, but I hope everyone hangs in there. And I just want to thank one more person, Brian Ludmer of Canada. He gave me 6 hours of free time, and he inspired me to take on a few cases. I don't do that much of these cases. I'm not part of the club, but I can take these cases because I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing. I don't think these people are getting represented at all. I've seen it. I could go on and on and on about my stories. So I think being part of the club is part of the problem, and it needs to be broken up and rooted out. We need Department of Justice investigations. We need civil rights lawsuits. Oh, I'm working on that. I got a little something in the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals. Okay, they're going to really like that one. I don't think they realize what's about to go down in the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals. We need to address it in the appellate courts. We need to address it. There's something called the Access to Justice Commission in the Supreme Court of Illinois. We need to address it with getting judges to speak out about it. There are some good ones, like in Cook County, Timothy Murphy, a really, really good jurist. They're out there. Why? What is happening? Why are these people so afraid to speak? We don't bite. We'll listen. Okay? We'll just help us put together a record in a case. Because I'll tell you, in Illinois, I got about 10, 15 easily. I need about 10, 15 more, and we got ourselves a class action civil rights case on fundamental, continual, the same stuff over and over and over again. And I want these people to explain to any court, any federal court, that it is okay to take away someone's kids on a status call, not a hearing, and not provide a record of it. I want someone to say that is okay, and no one will. And that's what's going on, and that's what's going to go up first. Someone will do it. Someone, hopefully a lot smarter than me, someone will do it, but we're getting damn close. And the anger and the frustration that we have right now is moving in our favor. We need to keep going. That's why I spoke out today. God bless everyone.